Hello, late good evening. Today, in this lecture, I am going to talk about May revolutions, especially in China. And 4th May 1919, students in Peking demonstrated in protest against the Chinese government humiliating policy toward Japan. There resulted a series of strikes and associated events amounting to social ferment and intellectual revolutions. This rising tide was soon dubbed by the students the May 4th movement, a term which required a broader meaning in the later year than it had originally. In the ensuing page, the term May 4th movement will be used in this broader sense. It covered the period roughly from 1970 through 1921 and include events summarized briefly as follow, supported by the rising priority and anti-great power sentiment of the public, which had been ignited first by the 21 demand, that is from Japan, in 1915, and Santung, especially who did the revelations after the Versailles Peace Conference in 1919. The students and new intellectual leader promoted an anti-Japan campaign and vast modulations of movement to build a new China through intellectual and social reform. They stress primarily Western idea of science and democracy. Traditionally, Chinese ethics, customs, literature, history, philosophy, religion, and social and political institutions were fiercely attacked. So, liberalism, pragmatism, and utilitarianism, just like anarchism and many variety of socialism, provided the stimuli. So the protest of May 4th marked the pivot of this development. Its aim soon sympathy from the new merchants, industrialists, and urban worker and Peking government were forced to compromise in its foreign and domestic policy. So this victory of new coalition facilitated the expansion of cultural and intellectual reform. It advocated shortly after the movement gradually become involved in politics and united front of new intellectual collapse. This liberal lost their zeal and away their politicals and activity, whereas the left wings of movements took expeditiate politicals things that supposed to be happen in the China that times. So aligning itself with the naturalist to overthrow the warlord Peking regiment and the Western attitudes and shifting from sympathy to antagonism toward the movement constitutes and one major factors in a split. So thereafter, socialism and nationalism became the accidented, mutilated, complicated controversy were presented. So the effect of movements were widespread. It contributed to the rise of the students and the labor movement and the reorganization of the Kuomintang and the birth of Chinese Communist Party and the political and social groups. So anti-worldism and anti-imperialism developed. A new vernacular literature was established and popular education was greatly facilitated, thereby the things supposed to be happen. So the accelerated decline of old family system and the rise of feminism and above all authority of Confucianism and traditional ethics suffer a fundamental devastating strokes and new Western idea were exalted. So at first, the term "my fourth movement," as used by the students and the press, did not refer to all the event and the mention above. It was rather applied only to the students' demonstration in the Peking on May 4th by analogy and the mass arrest that occurs after the June 3, 1919 were called the June 3rd movement in later year, and the people taking the May 4th movement not consciously have taken such a narrow view, but they failed to equal movement with the May 4th incident. And consequences, the term May 4th movement was then made case the interchangeable with the term May 4th incident. A second and the more serious questions of scope also been raised, and should the term the May 4th movement embraced on the one hand both the social and political activity of the students and intellectual on the other, so the new literature, new thought movement which started at the earlier that supposed to be a 1917 and came to be a called the new cultural movement, and some people held that the May 4th movement and new cultural movement were different and more little relations to each other. So this thought the movement was not directly caused by the new cultural movement, and leader of the latter did not general guide to even the support of the former movement. So they admitted only that new culture movement probably somewhat facilitated the May 4th movement, and while later sought to intellectually and aim to the expansion of the former. So the advocate of this and the representations overlook the necessary relations between the students' action and by the development of their thought that seem to be adopted such a view with the intention of relating and significance of new cultural movement and engaging the influence of other factors such as enrichments upon the students, and their view is not accepted by the many who were very observed and studied like the history of May 4th movement. So still another groups who recognized the close relations, relations between the students' aspect of the May 4th movement and new cultural movement. So rejected the idea that term May 4th movement should cover the latter. So principal proponent of these options were who see certain other scholars and the racistically who regarded the May 4th movement as a patriotic movement of the students and emphasized the significance of its cultural rather than social and political activities. So the things the May 4th movements, and when Sanyat rated the New Thoughts movement, who paid the more attention to new literatures and movements that vernaculars problem in particular work in English by who and the others who hold the name view and formalize the many Westerns with the view and cultural movements under the aspect of Chinese Renaissance. So through the adaptations of vernaculars and writings, here let's we talk about the things like one of the most prominent achievement of the movement, and the literary revelation should be considered merely one aspect of the great general advantage and the significant way of adaptations of vernacular language that to be more friendly for the students. And employed in the China denote only the person studying in a school, and this usage which follow in the student study the different from the English use of the word, which may also refer to the scholar, learner, and other one. While it is true, students' youth provided the most powerful driving force in the movement, adult in the leadership of the ideological aspect of the movement, and both young and adult intellectual play a good role in there. So it questions whether to give the primary emphasis on literary and the political controversy in China. So 1939, when the communists sponsors things like Heaven Youth Association in China was established Yan and suggested the May 4th just proclaim the Youth Day. It is a proposal to be the best thing, like a proposal to accept in the next things happen. So organization throughout the country, the Chinese government accepted it. Thank you.